Hi there, my name is Chris King. I'm the person behind Food is Wasted, a website dedicated to documenting the issue of food waste globally, the causes, the consequences, and sharing the voices and the stories of individuals and organizations at the front line of the fight against food waste, so helping to reduce the amount of edible food needlessly going to waste. The website can be found at foodiswasted.com, and there you'll see all the visual and the written and the audio content that I've produced over the past few years. This video, is the visual representation of the audio podcasts that I produce. I decided that I wanted to connect with as wide an audience as possible beyond just the realm of podcasts, and so I've started introducing my video camera where possible. So any sort of face-to-face interview that I have moving forward, and where the interviewee is willing, I'm going to be taking a video of the interview as well and sharing that on YouTube. This particular interview is with Selina Juul, who founded the Stop Wasting Food movement in Denmark, and she has achieved a huge amount in the past 10 years. She has spoken in front of the European Parliament, the UN Food and Agricultural Organization. The organization Stop Wasting Food movement has helped shape and played a key role in the EU kind of developing their goals and their targets around food waste. So she's helped raise awareness within Denmark and engage with the politicians and the supermarkets through this movement to really raise awareness about the issue of food waste and to take concrete action. So I hope you enjoy this interview. Please, again, don't forget to visit the website, foodiswasted.com, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel, iTunes podcast, and share this content far and wide, just to ensure that more people get to hear the voice of Selina and all the other people that I've documented and interviewed over the past few years. They and I would appreciate it greatly. I hope you enjoy the interview.
My name is Selina Juul. I'm the founder of the Stop Wasting Food movement Denmark, Stop Spilder Mad, and we are today the largest Danish NGO against food waste.
And what exactly have you done to try and reduce the amount of food waste?
Well, basically, today we have influenced pretty much the entire value chain to stop wasting food. Over 8 years ago, where I started the movement, there was not much focus on food waste. Back then, basically, before the financial crisis, people tended to waste a lot of food. And I started out, as a Facebook page, Stop Wasting Food. Because, personally, I was quite mad angry with, so many people wasted food. And then just 3 months later, we were not only in the national media, but the biggest discount retail chain in Denmark, Rema 1000, they came to us and they heard about us, and they said because of our movement, they have decided to cut down the bulk discounts, pay 3, buy 3, pay for 2. And when they did that, we were all over in the news, and it really started, from there, where, we started working with the government. Today we've worked with the 3rd government in a row. We also published a leftovers cookbook, which I can explain later. We introduced doggy bags in Denmark, won a lot of prizes, a lot of awards. The movement is growing. Almost every supermarket in Denmark has focus on food waste, and what also happened this year is we were featured on BBC, and the video in 2 months got 24 million views. So it is very huge.
And why do you think people, supermarkets, the government have all been very receptive within Denmark?
Well, Danish people, we're like a tribe, and it's a good cause. And Denmark is a small country, and it is quite easy to move the consumers, especially when it's a very good cause. When you stop wasting food, you stop wasting your time, you stop wasting your money, and at the same time, you help the environment. So basically, it's a win-win situation. Regarding to the politicians, It is because, we worked with liberal governments, we work with democratic governments, social democratic governments, and it's all, it's not about the politics, but it's about a very good cause that everybody can join on board and everybody can agree on. And the supermarkets, because, there are a lot of supermarkets really adopted the stop wasting food as a part of their CSR strategy. And it is also because, we the consumers, we expect supermarkets to do something to stop wasting food. And that is why more and more supermarkets in Denmark, they think it's a good idea because consumers demand it. Almost every entire supermarket in Denmark, they sell food that is about to expire with reduced prices, on reduced prices, which means that you can buy good cheap food at almost no money, and it also helps stop wasting food. So basically, every supermarket in Denmark has more or less a strategy to stop wasting food. It's amazing.
That's great. And what about the government in terms of legislation? And have they been progressive in amending current legislation or introducing new legislation?
Well, they did. Our present Minister for Environment and Food, Esben Lunde Larsson, is very much into the agenda. He made a team who's actually helping a lot of new projects to stop wasting food from farm to fork. And he's also looking at the the cause of how to make it easier for the supermarkets to donate food to charities. Our former minister for the food, Dan Jørgensen, which we also collaborated with, actually changed the law, which means that today all supermarkets in Denmark, they can sell food that is expired the best before date. It's rice and pasta and chocolate. They can actually sell it if they want to. So it's a pretty huge step.
Yeah, definitely. And you're quoted as saying that consumers are the biggest wasters. So is that something based on comprehensive statistics within Denmark, or?
Well, it's not only Denmark. If you see the statistics in Denmark, it is actually consumers are the biggest food wasters if you break down the entire value chain. But it's also in the European Union. You can see in the United States, the data shows that the consumers are the biggest food wasters. And in Denmark, first you have the consumers who are the biggest food wasters, then you have the industry, and then you have the supermarket. So it's, but still, there's a problem everywhere. And that's why we need to attack the problem everywhere. That's what our organization is doing. That's what a lot of people are doing. It's not like you cannot have just one miracle solution to stop wasting food. There's a lot of solution that can be implemented.
But do you trust the data? Because I know that within the UK, for instance, there's very little data at a farm level. There's very little real understanding as to the extent of the waste being produced because of, say, cosmetic standards and general kind of current supermarket practices and agricultural practices. So, without that comprehensive data, then inevitably it's going to put greater attention or skew the data, skew the figures against the consumer, maybe because there's more comprehensive data available. So, is that the same here in Denmark, or do you trust the data that there is?
Well, there are two biggest data providers on the food waste. The one is the Danish EPA, it's the government, and the other one is the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. And the data we have today from the Danish EPA is actually showing that, yes, the consumers are the biggest food wasters, and if you go to the industry, if you go to the farm levels, there not much data, just in the UK. And you also need to remember that all the data we have, it's basically estimates. The BBC video said that due to, partly because of our work, the Denmark's food waste has been reduced by 25% in 5 years. Now it is an estimate by the Danish Agriculture and Food Council, so it's not exact numbers. What also we need to remember that every time we see a supermarket throwing out food on a TV, it's horrible. But it also makes us, the consumer, think that it's their fault and someone has to be blamed. So it's not our fault, it's their fault. And what our organization is trying to say, that we own this together. It's all our responsibility. That is why we, all of us, are the great potential to stop wasting food. We cannot just go around and blame Tesco or blame, other. I mean, we need to work together to stop wasting food.
Yeah. And are you hopeful with the European Commission kind of creating the circular economy package and this EU action plan for the circular economy? Are you hopeful that constructive action is going to occur across the value chain?
Well, I have a member seat in the European Commission's platform against food losses and waste in Brussels. And right now we are discussing on how to measure food losses and waste. I'm also co-developer of the International Food Losses and Waste Protocol with the World Resource Institute. So there is a tool to measure food losses and waste. Now, the problem is that a lot of countries view food waste differently, and a lot of countries view food differently. So for example, what is edible in China, it's not edible for the people in Denmark because they will never eat, for example, the insides of an animal. And again, so it is quite a huge issue. I know that European Union adopted a goal, just as the United Nations, that by 2030 we have to halve our food loss and waste. We have to cut them down by 50%. And it's a huge goal. And we're busy. But we also need to measure it, because what can be measured can be managed. And right now it's important that the countries, not only in the European Union, but also all over the world, start to measure food losses and waste and the very same standardized way. Because if they measure different things, they will never achieve the same reduction.
And so what have you come up with? Is there an initial concept?
Well, right now we are, the protocol, the Food Loss and Waste Protocol, it has been launched. It has already been used in some countries, so it is being implemented. So if countries need to reduce their food losses and waste, they have to have this tool to measure it on the same way. Otherwise, you measure two different things. Yeah.
And how do you feel food waste can be kept on the agenda? Obviously, these developments at an EU level and UN level are fantastic, but if they're not written into law, then there's not necessarily any binding obligation for the countries to take action. But how do you feel things can be? How best do you feel that this legislation, this potential, this desire for obtaining these goals, how best do you feel it can be beyond measurement? Obviously you've mentioned measurement.
Well, you can see in Denmark, I mean, 8.5 years ago, almost 9 years ago, I started the Stop Wasting Food movement. It's a consumer initiative. We don't need any laws or any, regulations, because it is started by the people. It's a bottom-up grassroots initiative that really got on the government agenda, on the agenda of the politicians, and the agenda of the supermarkets. And basically, we don't need any laws that punish companies if they throw food away. I mean, just like in France. In France, they have the food waste law, which is basically, if you're a supermarket, you do not donate your excess food to charity, or you do not give your excess food to biogas, you will be fined. And the worst case scenario, you can go to jail if you're a supermarket. Now, it cannot happen in Denmark, because, we only have like 5 or 10 charities. So if every entire supermarket in Denmark starts to donate food to those charities, they won't drown in food. They won't have resources to give the food to all the needy people. So, and you're only pushing the problem onto a new level. what we also need to work on is the prevent of the excess food, prevent of the surplus food, to find out why there is so much surplus food to begin with. Because of course there's a lot of initiatives, like, for example, we introduced doggy bags in Denmark, and it's a very good initiative. People, they really like it. I mean, a lot of Danes, every second Dane actually thinks it's a very good idea. But it is a symptom treatment. Because, basically what you need to do is find out why is there needed for doggy bag? Why is there so portions are so huge? Maybe you could cut down the portions. The same with, food that goes to charity, which is a great idea, like Food Cycle. Very, very amazing initiative, but still you need to remember that, it keeps the symptoms running, that you have to, as a supermarkets, have to deliver some surplus food to the charities, and so you need to generate all the surplus food. Now, why do you have all those surplus food to begin with? So we need to address the root cause as well.
And what do you feel is the root cause?
Well, the root cause, it's a lot of times, for example, at the farm level, if you have some ugly produce, some imperfect, wonky produce, most of the time it's not living the farms, because the farmer knows that the people in supermarkets like you and I, or probably not you and I because we're very conscious of food waste, but people in general, they won't buy carrots that are looking wonky, or potatoes looking a little bit ugly, or let's say cucumbers who are bendy. And the thing is, it's so sad because a lot of good food goes to waste. Now, if you can put that produce on the market, in the supermarkets, and make people buy that thing, make people buy those ugly produce because it tastes just the same, actually, it will not only cut food waste, it will also generate growth for the farmer. Now, another thing what you also can do to address the root cause is making the food waste products. And now you're saying, what is the food waste product? Basically, it is a product made out of food waste, made out of those ugly produce. If you have, for example, ugly tomatoes or wonky cucumbers, stuff like that, you can actually produce it into a soup and put it onto the market. A lot of Danish producers already being made into this ugly produce and put on the market. There's a lot of initiatives in Netherlands, in France, in Germany, who are making this ugly produce and putting that onto the market, which is good, because now the farmer actually sells that stuff, and it can use the stuff, and it is going into the produce, and you and I can get, support stop wasting food, basically.
How, because speaking to, and as you have today, the director of CSR at the co-op here in Denmark, and she mentioned that they tried an initiative to introduce wonky veg in the past, and it was unsuccessful. So that maybe they need to alter the way in which they kind of introduce that produce, but obviously then there's the consumer side and their perception of it. So I know that when I was a child, you could buy wonky fruit and veg. It was in the supermarkets, but that was before supermarkets became dominant and started kind of engineering the system for their own benefit. So how best do you feel that that you can achieve what you want to achieve in terms of addressing those symptoms? Because it's I don't know where I'm going with this question, but it's all a bit nebulous, because you got the consumer side, you got the retailer side, and there's kind of all these forces pulling each in different directions. Obviously at a retailer level, it's about profits, and it's about health and safety and PR, so that their brand. At a consumer level, you've got such a diversity of diets and religious and ethnic kind of cultural forces that are dictating how people engage and interact with their food and what they consume and so on and so forth. So, because of that, I feel there is actually a need for legislation. There is a need for not necessarily punitive, not necessarily,
Like France.
like France, but maybe incentivizing and tax breaks or something that make it, taking a positive approach to the introduction of new legislation or amending current legislation, because of the diversity of consumers. It's going to be very difficult to mobilize them in any significant way and create critical mass, and retailers, because of the forces that are at work there, there's going to be resistance, and at least maybe not in Denmark but elsewhere. So I feel that in order to kind of create significant change in a very short space of time, because we're at this tipping point in terms of climate change, deforestation, soil degradation, all these things, it needs to happen, and there's not really that time for the grassroots momentum to build up, because I was part of the climate change movement 20 odd years ago, and there's still a huge amount of resistance. It's now a well-known issue, whereas it wasn't when I was campaigning initially. But that can't happen with food waste. We're at that tipping point where we need significant action. So in terms of legislation, what do you feel? What incentive do you feel could be brought to consumers, brought to retailers, manufacturers?
Well, you said it yourself, positive incentive. Because, for example, if the farmer could sell the produce that is wonky, and somebody will buy it and somebody will actually eat it, I mean, it's already positive, because now he's going to get a lot of money out of it, instead of just throwing it away and it never leaves the farm. Basically, it could be another one was, for example, companies could donate food to charities, and maybe they can get a tax reduction in a way. That is also being looked at the moment in the European Union's platform on food losses and waste. Definitely. I mean, I do not believe the French example is that we really have to punish and we really have to, put supermarkets in jail, because then they will start to avoid food waste on some other creative level, because they fear of going to jail, and that's not going to solve the problem. But positive incentive is quite interesting. And also the power of the consumers. Again, I mean, we've been working on this level for 8 years, 9 years soon, and we know that the consumer have huge power. But sometimes you need to, tell the consumers that you have this power. You can go to the supermarkets and you please start asking for the wonky carrots. Now I know that Cecile from the co-op, the CSR director, the wonky carrots, well, they have introduced that in the shop, and it was not that popular because people, when they have to cook and prepare the carrots, they want them straight. The wonky is a bit difficult, but I mean, it's a change of our mentality. I mean, we also need to change the mentality and think it's okay that, for example, the supermarkets doesn't have all the range of foods 5 minutes to closing time, like in a buffet in a canteen in a restaurant. If you have a buffet, maybe you don't have everything on the buffet 3 minutes to the closing time, because simply you don't, you can get everything on it. So basically, I think also what we tried, when we, and it was many years ago, and it was in 2011, we contacted Dane, which is the biggest publishing agency. And we said to them, guys, shouldn't we do a leftover cookbook? Because by that time, leftovers, I mean, they were not popular and they were not really sexy. Because, it's leftovers. Many people saying, leftovers, what's that? So we changed the mentality basically today. And we also got, very, very top celebrity chefs to back up the project to make this leftover food. So you can actually see it's very good food, can be made into dishes some new delicious dishes, and you can, save your time and you can save your money. And basically, that's what needs to be done. So, educate the consumers. For example, they have some porridge. Every Sunday, people are having porridge here in Denmark. It's very popular. And if you have a leftover porridge, what can you do with that? Well, you can bake some small cakes. So, it's quite easy once you get into it. So, yeah.
But do you feel that consumers are receptive because of, the forces that are at work there, in terms of, and also because of where we are? We're in a very dynamic era. There's lots of hard-hitting issues that are maybe a bit more emotive, so the wars that are going on, refugee crisis, and then the rise of nationalism and the far right. So there are all these very big issues that are getting a lot of mainstream media attention, and they are dominating both the politics and also the individual's kind of attention. So how do you think there is then the potential to kind of keep this on people's agenda and get them to engage with it? Because again, but doing it quickly, doing it effectively, and doing it quickly. Because 8 years, you've achieved a huge amount in 8 years, and it's fantastic. But because of where we're at, and especially with then Donald Trump being, so there are these setbacks as well that are possibly going to hinder progress. So, what do you feel can be best done and to engage with as many individuals as possible?
Well, first of all, it's clever communication, because we've been on the media's agenda for 8 years. I mean, today we're sitting in the Denmark's Radio, which is a national media broadcasting corporation, and I just did 2 interviews on national radio, so there is still a lot of attention on the topic. But it is also about the clever communication, because you are absolutely right. At one point, people will get tired about hearing "stop wasting food." So what we do is that basically, first of all, we are a lot of very good people going in the media. It's not only Selina, because if only Selina goes in the media, people will get tired of looking at this Kalishi girl, right? So it's not only Selina, it's a lot of people in the media. We have, shifts. So sometimes, it's our chef, for example, Anne-Marie from the book. She's going in the media as well. So we are really taking shifts. It's also communicating very clear messages, because in the Stop Wasting Food, it's very much about what's in there for me. Consumers want to know what's in there for me. What can I get out of Stop Wasting Food? That's why we put into our book, you can actually, back then, you can save 10,000 Danish kroner a year on an average household if you stop wasting food. So it's very important, to get very hands-on. And what's interesting with our agenda here in Denmark, no matter if you're liberal or if you're social democrat or you're far left or far right, they are interested in the subject, because what it all boils down to the subject. It's like you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money by wasting your food. So basically, if you stop wasting food, you stop wasting your time, you stop wasting your money, and you can actually, make world a better place. But sometimes we do not communicate about the environment, because people at this point are very, very tired about hearing the environment. It's very much not hands-on, because the climate change is such a huge topic, and people, they really don't know what they can do personally to help the environment. But if you get down to communicating and saying stop wasting food, it triggers them. It triggers them because there's a lot of things you can do as a consumer on an individual level. And there's also, as a restaurant, a lot of restaurants today, they are really the front runners to stop wasting food. They have, a lot of them, they cut down the buffets. They only have the portion sizes. A lot of them, because they cut down the food waste, they have a lot of more money to put into organic food, for example. So on that level, they're very much front runners So it's also a big business.
So you are hopeful then, and obviously you've done a real diversity of things in engaging consumers,
Yes.
and but you're hopeful that it won't take disaster, because very often it takes disaster, scarcity, something to cause scarcity, and
Yeah.
scarcity is going to come with climate change, and
It will.
but so many people just
will.
can't see it.
Yes,
Because-
exactly.
because-
it's in the future.
Yeah, and because in places like Denmark, the UK, people have had, or at least Britain, Northern Ireland's a bit different, but people are used to abundance. They're used to just being able to walk across the road to the supermarket, get what they want, and no issue.
Yeah, exactly.
For the majority. And very often we as humans don't really take action until
At least too
we're on
late.
on the cliff edge, and then we have to. It's right there in front of us.
Yes.
But you're hopeful then that with the momentum that you've built up over the past 8 years and what's happening across Europe and the world, you're hopeful despite this this very kind of dynamic era that we're living in and so much going on. You're hopeful that things will change, that people will engage with this, and they will change their practices at all levels, retailers, government.
I hope because now the food waste is gone on the agenda of the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goal 12.3. And back then in 2010 we were in Brussels in European Parliament and co-signed the Joint Declaration Against Food Waste, which is back then was a declaration that we want to cut down food waste by 25% by 2050. And kind of this document was delivered to the United Nations, to the European Union, and kind of set things in motion. So I'm quite satisfied and I'm also quite hopeful that, it is on the agenda of the United Nations. So no matter the government you have, no matter if that's left-wing or right-wing government, the food waste is right now on the agenda of the United Nations. It is big, it is huge, and it is also on the agenda of the European Union. And it gives us hope then, when nobody else wants to do anything, but you do have the United Nations and you do have the European Union, and those are two huge super tankers and you cannot ignore them. So basically I also think that what's going on, it's some kind of a new awakening in a way that people are starting to become aware that we are in the middle of a huge crisis. It's a climate crisis. It's a resource scarcity crisis. We haven't even seen anything of it yet, but it is coming. It's the overpopulation crisis. We're going to be more and more people. We need to produce more and more food for those 12 billion people that's going to be by the end of the century. And people are starting to realize that we cannot keep producing 1/3 of the world's food has been produced to feed the garbage. We cannot keep doing that. And at the same time, we have almost 1 billion people who are going hungry, who are starving. So if you see it like this, people are awakening. People are starting to understand that what they do, their personal, individual actions, the actions of companies, the action of governments are actually affecting on an entire planet, an entire society. So yes, I am hopeful, and I think that we will change, and the change is inevitable, but I don't think we need to force the change. Not with the laws or regulations or prison. We really need to start this awakening from bottom up. It's what we did in Denmark, and now it started to affect the companies, started to affect the government, started to affect everybody. And it's on the media agenda as well, still, which is amazing. So really, we need to keep going.
Great. Okay, so just to wrap up, what is in store? What next? What are you, in terms of, do you have new initiatives in the pipeline?
Oh, we always do have new initiatives. Well, first of all, we are working right now on this new initiative. It's called Surplus Food. And I know it's a bit of a symptom treatment, but as I already told, there is a lot of surplus food in the industry. For example, let's say it's January, and in industry you have a lot of Christmas cookies. and you cannot sell Christmas cookies in January because people won't buy them. So right now we're building up the system. It's called surplus food, and it's basically the food that has gone from the industry to the local charities. So they can, the Danish People's Aid, they have 50 local departments in Denmark, and the food can go to those departments and can be given free to food insecure families. Now we're testing this in Odense, and it's doing quite well, so we're very hopeful that it's going to be a national initiative. So it's a lot of work.
And where are you getting your financial support from? How are you kind of sustaining all this?
Well, we're just like other NGOs, it's difficult, and we are seeking a lot of funding. Sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're lucky to get on the funding for the government. You know, the previously mentioned initiative Surplus Food is actually funded by the government, which is good. So sometimes we're lucky, sometimes we're not, and that's the life of the NGO. So yeah, we're struggling, just like many other NGOs, but we're hopeful. We're not giving up.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.